Bernie Sanders went on CNN and went on to Anderson Cooper's show, and it's funny because now all of a sudden that Bernie Sanders is so popular, right? Now all of them want him on. They don't want Hillary Clinton on. They don't want any of these people on. They want Bernie Sanders on, but they elect Tom Perez as their DNC chair. Real interesting, right? So, Trump made this comment. He said, "Nobody knew healthcare could be so complicated." Trying to make it seem like healthcare is complicated, which it is, no doubt. But this idea that nobody knew it was complicated is probably one of the stupidest statements possible, because Obamacare in itself, there's an individual mandate. People were arguing, hey, we want the public option. They were saying the Obamacare is just a stepping stone. Employers have to pay, but it's like, at what line do you pay? 50 employees, okay, you pay. How are you going to get it? Do the health insurance companies control the insurance or the premium rates? What should the premiums be? Who should be covering most of the premiums? What are you going to do if you can't pay the premiums? And all of this shit, right? It's unbelievable how confusing it is. So here's what Ross Story says. They say, Senator Bernie Sanders on Monday laughed out loud at Trump's assertion that nobody knew healthcare could be so complicated, noting he already had a clue the issue was a complex one. And I'm sure Bernie Sanders does, because he's actually the guy who's actually, and all these people like say, oh, Bernie Sanders is a fantasy guy. He's a do-nothing. My ass, he's a do-nothing. There's one person who's a liberal progressive who actually proposes the legislation, just as we saw recently, to get prescription drugs cheaper for everyday Americans. He's the one doing that. He's the one proposing the legislation, the amendments. He's proposed the Medicare for All bill. So don't act like this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Clearly he does, okay? They go on, they say, healthcare was a major component of Sanders' bid for the 2016 Democratic nomination. The Vermont senator is a leading proponent of a single-payer system that guarantees healthcare for all and has spent decades advocating for access to healthcare as a right, not a privilege. And I totally agree with that. I think that any modernized nation that's industrialized definitely ought to have, supposedly Republicans are the party of Jesus and morality and Christianity and religion, right? That's quite a bit ironic, right? Because I thought Jesus would have given them healthcare regardless of their money. I thought he was a hippie type guy. But anyway, so they go on, they say, well, some of us who were sitting on the Health Education Committee, who went to meeting after meeting after meeting, who heard from dozens of people, who stayed up night after night trying to figure out this thing, we got a clue, Sanders told Cooper on Monday's AC 360. When you provide healthcare in a nation of 300 million people, yeah, it is very, very complicated, he continued. And maybe the president, some of the Republicans can understand you can't go beyond the rhetoric. We're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're going to repeal Obamacare and everything will be wonderful. A little bit more complicated than that. Let's get beyond rhetoric, the senator concluded. That is truly amazing. I don't think I could have stated it better myself, because all there was from Trump was rhetoric. He's not a politician. Although he donated to politicians, he doesn't know how to propose legislature. He doesn't know how legislature gets implemented. He doesn't know what goes into the legislature being implemented. He doesn't know what goes into writing the legislature. Bernie Sanders does. He's been there for years. He's been a representative. He's been a senator. He's been a mayor. So the guy's been everywhere, right? So he knows how it works. Trump doesn't. And that's the thing. So, this idea that, hey, we just repeal and now you get the freedom to get your own healthcare. We had that already. People couldn't get healthcare with pre-existing conditions because the companies would say no. This is one of the biggest jackass ideas I've ever heard in my life. This idea that we should just let people die because they got sick or they came up with a disease is unbelievably ridiculous. In my opinion, it should be something that comes out of your tax dollars, doesn't cost a shitload of money. I'm going to say it and I say it again. Brunei, a country with Sharia law, has single-payer healthcare, meaning that a country in which the scripture of the Quran says that, for example, you can beat your wife, that if she doesn't submit, you can't, or the testimony of a woman is half of a man. All of that stuff, right? Guess what? They find it morally necessary to provide that people just get sick and die. The estimate made is that 25 to 45,000 Americans die per year as a result of a lack of basic health care that must change.